let me introduce the next congressperson from Congressional District 6, and that will be Kirsten Engel. I saw Kirsten speak at a fundraiser on Saturday. She's got a plan. She knows how she's going to get reelected, and it's such a pleasure to have her on the call tonight. You can see here she has an extensive record as being a former state legislature, being a law professor who does her homework, by the way. And she's a union member. She's a member of United Campus Workers, and she almost got elected last time. So, Kirsten, the floor is yours. Tell us how we can push you over the top.
Okay, it's my pleasure to do so. So thank you all very much for having me. And that was great to follow Sean and get an update on what's going on with the Biden campaign that we are eager to work with and are already working with. I think Sean and Aaliyah, my campaign manager, have each other on speed dial, and that's really the way it should be. So I'm very, very proud and honored to be here as your Democratic candidate for Congressional District 6, a seat that we can flip. Unfortunate that we're flipping it as opposed to holding it after just very, very narrowly missing it last time. But this is a seat that we can flip and get our Democratic majority back and functionality to the US Congress. So as you know, we only need a few seats in that Congress to get our majority back. Same thing in our legislature. We have these very, very thin Republican margins in the US House and also in our state legislature. And this is going to be the year that we overcome that and we actually get those majorities back. So I know so many of you supported me when I ran in 2022, and I want to just thank you very much for what you did. Phone banking, knocking on doors. So many of you have already been active on my 2024 campaign. I want to thank you for that. What we did last time, knocking on doors, writing checks, everything, has really provided a foundation for this 2024 race. So we narrowly missed it after being outspent 6-1, lost by one of the closest margins in the country, 5,232 votes, but who's counting? And this time we're going to get over that. So let me just say a few words on our strategy for closing that gap. 5,000 votes doesn't sound like a lot, but as Sean pointed out, this is a very close district. This is a very close state, and we can expect that the Republicans are going to pull out every stop they can to try to hold on to the seat, just like they pulled out every stop they could with really horrible ads against me, et cetera, during 2024. This district is evenly divided just about by Democrats, independents, and Republicans. Republicans have had a slight registration advantage, but nevertheless, just in the last couple weeks, all of the major rating organizations that look at districts and rate them for how close they are, they now rate CD6 as a toss-up district. Okay, so how do we get it from toss-up to Democrat? Well, our strategy is first, we got to lead with our values. And our values are the American values of freedom, of opportunity, of democracy, of safety and security for everyone in our community. And I would also put in the old-fashioned, pragmatic American, roll up our sleeves and get things done value. We're going to contrast our values with those of the GOP and my opponent specifically, Juan Ciscomani. And I would say those values, as we've been watching, has been control, tolerance of political violence, even incitement of political violence, intolerance of minorities, and dysfunction, chaos and dysfunction, and almost almost by some of those members, celebration of it and enabling of it. That is where I would put my opponent, Juan Ciscomani, the Republican who won by a close margin. He has not been necessarily a leading edge of the MAGA Republican dysfunction, but he has been enabling it by voting along with those extremists and making their extremism really just a chaotic Congress that can barely get a budget across the line. And just about all of the things they've been able to do, they've had to rely recently for Democratic votes. Okay, besides leading with our values, contrasting with our opponent, we're going to be connecting with the voters, and we are going to be marshaling our resources. And I want to focus in on just a few values that we're really going to be highlighting. And of course, the value of freedom, the freedom to make our own healthcare decisions. Every person must have the right to decide for themselves, with family members, with a doctor, with a religious advisor, whether, when, how to have a family or to add to their family. And I am just incensed at what's going on in Arizona, bringing us back to the time of the Civil War, 1864 criminal abortion ban, when women didn't have the right to vote or even the right to own property, and dragging us back and chaining women in the manner that this law does. So that will be a top priority of our campaign, to fight to guarantee reproductive rights, abortion access. And there couldn't be a bigger difference between myself and Ciscomani on this. Ciscomani cheered the repeal of Roe versus Wade when the Dobbs decision came down. Since he's been in Congress, he's been a reliable voting over and over again for national abortion restrictions. Restrictions on medication abortion, restriction on the availability of reproductive services by our service members. The list goes on and on. He may be trying to reinvent his record today, but nobody's fooled. We're not going to let him do that. He's very strongly come down on the side against women's freedom. Other issues that we will be focusing on are that of water security, climate change, protecting our communities, our children from gun violence. And I would say also, we're not going to cede any territory to the Republicans on the border. They don't have some kind of lock on issues of border. They don't even see the connection between border security and immigration reform. That became very clear to us as we saw the Republicans, and especially my opponent, Juan Ciscomani, reject out of hand the bipartisan border security immigration reform deal. Certainly not a perfect deal in my book. It didn't even have something to make sure that we make the DACA youth citizens. But it was a step forward on an intractable issue that would have provided resources for immigration judges to process the asylum claims of so many people who come to our border for a better life, would have had more resources for our ports of entry where we've seen a lot of the drugs coming in, and it would have had more aid for our humanitarian relief, such as Casa Alitas here in Tucson, which services and gets back on their feet so many of the migrants who come to our communities looking for a better life. So those are some of the top issues. I would really emphasize that we also are working on connecting with the voters. If any of you out there are interested in volunteering with our campaign, please reach out. My website is engelforarizona.com, where you can put your name in. And we also are having an office opening party on May 4th, 11 to 1 p.m. I'll put the address, the mobilized link into the chat if any of you are interested in attending. and getting more involved in our campaign. Finally, marshaling the resources, working with other candidates up and down the ballot to get our message out, to get people to vote. That will be a top priority. I was very, very flattered and honored to be on the red to blue list of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. As many of you know, the DCCC, as it's called, famously did not support our race last time. We weren't the only race that they didn't support. They didn't support any challenger congressional race in Arizona. I lost very narrowly. There was a very narrow loss up in Phoenix as well. This year, it is completely different. The DCCC has been helping us a great deal, helping our campaign. I think we can see more and more resources coming, and putting me on that top list of most flippable seats in the United States has been a great boost to our campaign. So this time around, I'm feeling very optimistic. It feels very different this time from 2022. The stakes are even higher, but the mobilization, the commitment, the dedication that I am seeing just across the board, Democrats, but also independents, moderates, has been really phenomenal. So I think I'll stop at this point, but I welcome your questions if we have time for that. I know I think I've talked longer than I was supposed to.
All right, thank you, Kirsten, so much. You know, you've got a lot of support here in LD18, and we're going to make sure Biden takes the state, and we're going to make sure that Juan Ciscomani is ousted and you are our next congressperson. So thank you so much for coming to address us here tonight.